So I'm so thrilled to have these amazing filmmakers with us. I'm going to start with the elephant in the room that these are just three brilliant filmmakers we want to talk to. They all happen to be women, but I am so tired of women in film panels. Can I get an amen? We're not talking about being a woman in film. We're talking about making films with women. So there's a difference. So thank you so much all for being here. We know your time is really valuable. I want to talk a little bit about your journey to making these debut films. Um, Maybe I'll start with Molly. Molly, did you always know you might be a filmmaker? Obviously you've been a cinematographer, which is a kind of filmmaker, but did you know you would always want to direct?
So I started wanting to direct documentaries and then trained in cinematography in order to shoot my own documentaries because I realized that you don't really get the budget. Um, and then just had loads of fun doing cinematography. But then transitioned back. In order to shoot my grad film, I had to write it. So, by process of like being forced into some situations and enjoying others, I sort of ended up here. Yeah,
And you said grad film. Where did you study film? Where did you study?
yeah. I studied at Bournemouth and then at NFTS.
And how do you think your cinematography background helps you, like when you're writing a script?
Uh, prob- Probably in a way it's like a hindrance as well.
Oh.
No, it's good because you can be visual, I guess. But also, I feel like sometimes I know too much. You know.
Okay. You know that you can't just write something and that's going to be impossible to actually shoot.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Or like you know that like in order to get that scene, you're gonna need to do certain things. Or like put the camera. I don't know. I just sometimes I self regulate.
not censor yourself, but you kind of make sure
It's
don't
possible.
dream too big
Yeah.
because you got to deliver
She
it.
says, looking at the producer like, I know I didn't do that much of it. Yeah, there was quite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick with you for a few minutes, and I hope you don't get bored over there. We'll come around next. Tell us a little bit about how To Have Sex came about. Don't Google it, people. You're going to end up in the wrong parts of the internet. Um, was this Did this have to be the first story you told, or why was this the story that you wanted to launch
Yeah.
with?
I was writing something else, and then I went to a wedding, and with a bunch of old schoolmates who I went on these kind of holidays with, and in Ibiza the wedding was, and we were sort of like getting drunk in the same places that we used to party in, and being like, "Do you remember when this happened?" And then we sort of like started uh, talking about specific scenes that are in the film that we remembered, um, and uh, and I kind of realized it had a huge impact on us as young
So
influence teenagers.
most people here probably didn't have the luxury to go to Cannes. Do you want me to describe the film and mangle it, or do you have a sort of elevator pitch of how you say what it's about?
I could try my best.
Okay.
It's about three girls on holiday, and one of them is like desperate to lose her virginity, and via like the pressure of society and the space and toxic masculinity and friendship, it all goes horribly wrong.
And how many years did it take you to write the script? Or it could have been 2 days. I don't know. How was the process of actually writing it and then finding your producers and getting it
Yeah.
made? How long did that take?
Like strangely quickly,
Okay.
because I wrote in lockdown, and I hope there's another lockdown so I can do some more writing. Um,
Headline: Molly Manning Walker
Sorry, yeah.
demands another virulent pandemic.
I'm joking,
Yeah,
joking,
yeah.
joking. Obviously, um, no, but it happened because I was in isolate. I was
Yeah.
in isolation, and I could work quickly. I'm a very distractible human, um, and I wrote 68 pages as like a first thing, and then that's what the producers read, and then we sort of developed the rest of it together over the rest of lockdown, and like yeah, it happened strangely quickly. Then when we came out of lockdown, the week after I shot Scrapper, we went on our first recce.
Wow,
Yeah.
quite quick.
and
Wonderful.
and then we were shooting
And
a
this sort
year
of,
later.
maybe because you'd had a hot short, it had been in Cannes. Emily, was it easy to finance? Easy, easy peasy. Okay, it had a wind in its sails.
Everyone felt that it was a story that needed to be told,
Yeah.
which I guess we didn't really realize the power of that at the beginning, and then it sort of snowballed.
Yeah. Amazing film. I'm going to come to Celine next, who's had a slightly different journey, I think. So, Celine, you were working a lot in theater. And can you tell us how? I mean, did you study theater? Was that always, or did you study literature? You studied theater. What took you, how did you get from theater to film?
So I was a playwright for like, 10 years. And
A very
then
good one.
thank
Yes.
you. And I think that like, like just like how you were talking about your background being in cinematography, I feel like my background was in writing because that was the primary thing that I was doing. And sometimes like you're trying to tell a certain story, and then this particular story, Past Lives, it was something that was asking to be a cinematic uh, story. So I think that that's why I
Hmm.
thought that it might be the right thing to write my first screenplay
Hmm.
about. Yeah.
And how did you find it? Did it feel quite different to writing a theater piece?
Well, I think part of like, because I had a formal like MFA
Yeah.
things, and part of it is like they do like what you don't realize when you're in studying theater is that like all your professors who are playwrights, they all know the secret about playwriting, which is that you won't make a living doing it. At
Oh.
least not in America. I don't actually know what it's like here,
Yeah.
but it's very, very hard to make a living in theater. You can make a killing for like a year, but it's really hard to have a fruitful career where you won't have to do anything else.
Okay.
That's really hard.
Even more than independent film.
I think
Yeah,
more than
even more.
independent film
Okay.
actually, yeah. Well, because I mean I had a play done in a whole city where it was a whole run of like a month, and they paid me $500 for it, and it's a play that I
Oh.
like I spent like 3 years writing, and by the way it wasn't like I was like, how dare you, it's like it's a local theater, and then you're just like, oh yay, the community in Seattle is gonna get to see my play, and you're like, and you're so excited, and of
Yeah.
course, and then I of course also spent the $500 to
Going to Seattle
fly
to
to
see it.
Seattle to see my own play. Very special stuff. Okay, but so it's just like, so it's just the way that, and I think that is something that American theater is dealing with, which is not what this panel is about. But I think so. So I think they all knew already that you won't make a living just doing that. So I think there's a very real effort to give you some other ways to make a living, even within the MFA program for theater, where they taught they had a screenwriting class. I had a TV writing class from other playwright turned TV writer or playwright turned screenwriter, and those were really helpful because they were just a way that you just like learned the basics of like, you guys know that book How to Save a
The
Cat.
cat
Does it?
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, so it's like, it's just kind of like basic like textbook stuff that you just have like one semester, one class, and I feel like so I knew how to like do it, right? Just
Like
because of that
technically,
class.
you get final
Technically.
draft and
Yeah, you
you,
guys final trap,
yeah,
and then you're like, oh, that's what the INT means,
yeah.
interior, like, so you kind of know some of that. But then I feel like when it comes to the transitioning of it, I feel like, I mean, I've talked about this before, but it's like like theater is storytelling that happens in figurative time and space, and film is something that happens in literal space. So I worked for 10 years in figurative space, and there are a few things that are really cool about working in figurative space where I talk about it as like, like all you need to do to tell a theater audience that you're on Mars, the character's on Mars, is for the character to say, well, today on Mars. And then everybody in theater will just, even if it's a theater that looks like this with nothing on it, everybody will come along on the journey of believing that the characters are on Mars. But if you want to make a movie on Mars, you have to build Mars, right? Or you have to go to Mars and shoot it there. So I think that really is the difference when it comes to space, and when it comes to time, of course, time, it is very much about yeah, like you can see it in casting, where it's like you can have a 4-year-old woman play a 14-year-old boy, and that's something that you can just do in theater, and the whole audience will come along with you. But in film, again, it's literal, so you have to cast literally. You can't, imply certain things. Otherwise, the person that is photographed has to be the literal person that you're trying to depict. So I think that transition is something that is like what you're getting your head around. But I think that's once you sort that out, then it's sort of you can tell what are the strengths of cinematic storytelling and what are the strengths of theatrical storytelling. So I think that was the
Yeah.
transition. Yeah.
And I know Killer Films was one of the companies, and 2 a.m. Is Pam here?
Pam is here.
Hi, Pam.
Pam.
Maybe we're not going to interview Pam from the audience because that's just obnoxious. But did they just sort of automatically believe that you're going to be a filmmaker? You might be a great playwright, but they just knew you could do it.
Well, I think that some of it has to do with like the way you speak about it more than anything, because I feel like so much of like most of the job is communication. So I think that it really has to do with the way that I was talking about how I want to make this movie and what I believed about it. And of course, the communication doesn't just happen in my meeting them and talking to them. It already exists on the script. So on the script, it already had direction for how I would direct it, on there. So I think it's more like it starts there, and then you read it, and then you talk to me, and then you just assume that I am, not. You just have to meet me, and then realize that I'm not going to be a jerk and bad at communicating. And then I think that you sort of, and then after that, you're taking a chance on the person because I'm a
I mean, you're
first-time
always
filmmaker.
taking a chance when you make a
Exactly.
film. Had you grown up being a real cinephile? Or
Yes.
Okay. So you had sort of film in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. And I think it's like, but I think it's more like, I think the danger sometimes is to be somebody who is obsessed with the form, but maybe not the story for it. Because I feel like sometimes I see, and I see this in theater and film and everything, TV, everything, where it's like you feel like the person who's making it just wanted to make a film. Does that make sense? Like where it's like,
It didn't really matter what film, they were just going to
they were
put
like,
something
I
on.
just want to make and you can, and also in theater too, you're like, did you just want to make a theater piece, or did you have something to say? Did you want
Yes.
something to do? So I think I'm, but because I think ultimately
Did
I'm
you need the
pretty.
$500?
Yeah, exactly. Did you need the five? I mean, I did need the $500.
Yeah, okay.
But I think so. I don't think it's like when it comes to the form of it. I think I don't. I think I was always pretty agnostic for where to do it. But one of the great things about theater is that writer is king in theater.
Mm.
So writer is the one who is the author and auteur
Mm.
in theater,
Yeah.
and all you need to do to be a playwright for a play is to write a play. So the
Yeah, and you can
barrier.
sit in your room and do that
Yeah, you can
without
sit under and do that.
collaborators.
Exactly. And then if it moves somebody when you read the script, but read the play, then you can start to put a play together as long as you have like a room that you can rent, and then you can start doing it. But so the kind of the barrier to being on a tour is lower if you know how to write, right? But in film, it felt like there's so many ways to become a director, which is what is considered the auteur position or the king position. And I felt like getting there, it's like it's interesting. You can have so many ways. I'm sure there's on this panel there are so many ways that we can get there.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was not like I could also join I could also join a film set, or I could keep writing plays. So I feel like it was one of those decisions. Yeah.
Okay. Right, let's hand over to Nida. Thank you, everybody. Nida, tell us a little bit about your journey to first a little bit in TV, and I think you were directing other people or with other people or part of a show. I'm getting this mangled. And then you created We Are Lady Parts, which is more the authored. You were the showrunner, as they would say in America, and then into film. So can you tell us a little bit? I mean, did you grow up thinking of films all the time?
Yeah, well, I grew up feeling the pressure to be like a lawyer, a banker, a doctor, and then did a hard pivot on my parents. My journey, yeah, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to make movies in the cinema. I tried, and initially I wrote a feature first up, which was Polite Society, but like 10 years ago, no, 11 years ago, I wrote the first draft. It was bonkers. It was like pre even writing a short film. It's like, all right, I'm writing a feature. I hadn't gone to film school, so it was just based off films I loved, and also wanting to do an action movie. I was really excited to work in that genre, but to have center it on sisterhood and about like a teenager and stuff. So I wrote a first draft of that. You know, Creative England, BFI, Film London, all these great places. I sort of like got to a stage and didn't happen because it was bonkers. It was an action sci-fi kung fu, like it was kind of what you were saying.
It still is bonkers, but it's been made. It's
Been
amazing.
made. Everyone was like, what? And I struggled. I struggled to get it made and for people to put it in a box. So yeah, I sort of like cool, and then television opened up for me in a way that film wasn't. So I got a job, directing a pilot, a comedy pilot, because my tone kind of leans comedy. That's where I enjoy to work. I was writing for kids television. That's kind of how I was earning a living. I was also working as a runner in a post house, because I really wanted to be adjacent to film. Like, I got excited when I heard conversations about filmmaking, like hearing people talk about like the visual effects for a thing, and I just love that. Um, I realize it sounds really superficial, being like, "Ooh, aliens, yes," but I like heart and meaning too. Um, sort of most of the aliens. No, yeah. So I started directing comedy, low budget BBC comedy, a pilot that went to a series, and so the pilot did well. It's a show called Enterprise, and then so when I went to a series, I got to direct it. So I got a series credit, and then Doctor Who, after doing a BBC series, Doctor Who were looking for directors, and that was like really exciting for me because I want to work in genre, and it was like getting to do aliens and animatronics, but also like Jodie Whittaker as Doctor was cool. Um, and then I suppose Polite Society, this film, I had it. It was kind of bubbling in the background. Olivier's here, producer, who's been with it for a long time, and from when it was like BFI, we were sort of like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, and then essentially I got to make a show called We Are Lady Parts, which was I was just getting a lot of. I was being asked to write about sort of Muslim women. That's my background, but as like suffering and like honor killings and stuff. And I was like, that's not really my experience. My parents are pretty cool. They're like, but could you co-write this with this white man? So rubber stamp that. I'm like, no, mate. It's like I've disappointed my parents already. You think I'm just gonna like disappoint myself? That was like my issue. I'm like, I'm obviously not going to do this. So then that pushed me to like develop a TV show idea that was like truly from the things I love, which I was like, okay, if I'm going to have to explore this aspect of my identity of like, my experience of living in a Muslim household. And I was like, I'm going to do it in a comedy because that's my jam. It's going to have music because I wished I was a brown girl. Bob Dylan didn't work out. I'm like, it's going to be a music comedy. And I'm going to write the songs with my siblings. I'm like, this is the pitch. And I pitched it like a beast. I was like, do you not get my show? If you don't get my show, you're out. Like I had a leg to stand on. Like I wasn't desperate. But yeah, so that show got greenlit through Channel 4, through all these machinations. Making that show did well, and then that was with Working Title. So Tim Bevan at Working Title, they're like, we make movies here. And I was like, oh, I have one, slam. There's other stuff, Olivia. I know. Yeah, there's other stuff happened.
But did Working Title, did they want to see the film script even before you had started directing Lady Parts? Or did they sort of, this was after they had seen that you could really do it?
After I proved myself, I was like, I
Yeah.
nailed it. Is that right, Olivia? They didn't ask for it before, right? No, it's after after I nailed it. They're like, do you have anything? It's like, douche. And it's mad. And then it was cool because they're like, you should make it more mad, which I never got. They're like, maybe you should go to therapy. Whereas like they're like, go lean in. So that was cool. And so I feel like we got to make the film in the the way that kind of honored it the most. Whereas like I felt like when I was in different places where we were trying to make it, it was like the execs I had weren't super down with what I was trying to do of the genre stuff. It was silly. I don't know, it wasn't really worthy. I felt like sometimes people have this like disconnect. If there's brown people in it, like it's got to be like why is no one suffering? Or like why is there so many naked butts? I'm like, cause I desperately desire that. I don't know, you know?
Love it. From the 11-year-old version of that script, how is it different? Did it get madder because you had a decent budget, or maybe it
More
looks like a
butts.
decent more
No,
butts?
but yeah, it evolved. It evolved a lot. I was just more experienced as a writer. I wrote a TV show. I directed television. I've written different kinds of TV. I understood. I didn't go to film school, but just the sort of intervening 10 years were like where I learned how to write, and I learned what I care about and what I will kind of suffer for, or like So that was my film school. I think, yeah.
And how do you? I mean, did you ever get note if Working Title wants to give you notes? I mean, they're pretty successful. I think we can agree. Do you take the notes? What do you do with? Do you stand your ground if you don't like the note?
Um, they were pretty chill, I've got to say. Like,
Okay.
it was cool because it was Tim Bevan at Working Title, a powerful producer, and I had great producers from Olivier and John Pocock. So there were people who really believed in what the tone of the thing, they were like, you're doing the tone. And so it was always notes about like how to lean into what I wanted to try and do.
They were helping you get to where
They
they thought you
were.
wanted to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the film was a studio film. It was
Mm.
Focus Features and Universal.
Mm.
So that's where someone like Tim's, producers like Olivia and John could kind of, whenever notes came that maybe didn't chime, which wasn't that often,
Mm.
it could be, I had people who supported me. So I felt, in a way, it was like the dream scenario because the film is an action movie and it has like, it's ambitious in scale, so it requires a certain
Mm.
level of resource. So I had the studio support, but I also had incredible producers to kind of like protect the identity of the film and the story and the heart of it.
Great. Let's come back to Celine. And sometimes people like talking about this, sometimes they don't. We're going to find out now how you feel. Um, I've seen you and your husband here at Sundance London, and he's a writer, and you're from a Korean American family, and you live in New
Canadian.
York.
Korean Canadian.
Oh
It's
gosh.
okay.
Okay. Korean North American family.
Yes, yes, yes.
You live in New York. How autobiographical is this story? Does that make you is it uncomfortable when people assume that it's you, or is it a lot on you? And how do you handle people knowing if it's something personal, and if it's not autobiographical, is it still like personal and intimate somehow to you?
Well, I think it's like first of all, I mean, like this is a question that you get asked every day.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's
I
okay.
had
It's
to do
okay.
it.
It's just how it is. But I was just thinking. I think it's connected to the answer to this question, which is that I do get asked this so much more than I do in other movies, other things that I've made, other plays I've made, and I think partly it's because I think it's complex, but I think it's like because the ways in which that the story of the main character of my movie is aligned with me is a thing is in schemes that people can identify and name, that I think that people think that it is more personal than I think some of the other things that I have made. And when in fact I actually I really don't see that it is any more or less personal than anything else I've ever made. I feel like everything I make ends up being really, really personal, just because um, that's what you can do when you're trying to make something that has intimacy in it, that has whatever the intimate observation of something in it. It's like all you can really lean on is your own personal thing. So there is a lot of personal thing, and also only that you have to work on everything you do, including the plays I've done that are like you've worked on it for like 3 years at a minimum. Like in some cases, like like 11,
12.
12, right? So it's like, and you're working on it for that long. It is really hard to have your skin in the game if it's not something that is like deeply personal to you,
Mm.
that could deeply wound you. So I think it's, yeah, I'm just saying. But I think because of that, I think that I genuinely don't believe that this movie is any more or less personal than, or a
Other
little
work.
more and less autobiographical than I think the other things I have made. And I have a play about cannibalism, which is what they paid
Okay.
$500 to do. I had a play
Um,
was about cannibalism, and I'm like, well, no one ever asked me about that play
cannibalism.
being fucking personal, and I'm like, that play is so fucking personal to me.
Mm.
There's a play about book burning, and I'm like, it is so personal to me. It is, but I think that it's really
Mm.
hard when somebody is seeing something that is like, yes, it is literal, but it's also literal space, but it's also when it comes to identity as people understand it.
Mm.
Sometimes I think people just like assume that it is going to be more just because it is like so like
Right
that.
there and literal.
Yeah. But I think, but also it is fair because
Mm.
I am making a character somebody who is, pulled from some of the literal things that
Mm.
happened in my life. So I think it is
Yeah.
fair to ask me.
Okay.
But I think that sometimes I'm a little bit like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like you have a subjective experience and then there's an object that is a script that I wrote, right? I don't write my life. I don't write
It's
my
not a
feelings.
diary.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not there, and there's a whole script that I wrote that can be understood by the audience. And then of course I made it into a movie with like hundreds of people and like a cast, right? I'm not asking my cast to recreate my feelings. I'm trying to get a cast to act in a scene,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So by the end of you're looking at the movie like it's a movie,
Mm.
right? You're like, you're just making a movie,
Mm.
you know? But I think I understand the thing as it becomes a thing
Mm.
in the world that I think it
Yeah.
is fair to ask me,
Yeah.
but sometimes I get a little bit
Yeah.
like, totally. But you did not ask me about this when I was, talking about my
Cannibalism.
play about book burning, and it
Yeah.
is literally about like that one is like about my
Yeah.
marriage, and I'm like, you don't think about that one, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, I'm kind of just to push it one more is that because I asked Charlotte Wells about After Sun, which is a brilliant film, and we know that's very personal and has some of her own story, but is there this sort of layer of it where the audience wants it to be your story and are they sort of projecting that onto you, and is that sort of an extra weight on your shoulders?
Well, I think that you both it's just like everything. Everything that's a strength that is also its weakness, and it's the other way around.
Mm.
So I think that I'm sure I benefit from people wanting that to be true, and that
We
makes
want
them
to hug you.
feel right, right. Like they want to feel close, and in that way, I feel like of course, I think the movie uh, is can be loved in that way. So which I think is so I can't really say like don't do that because you're like, well, I
Mm.
mean, the uh, it is also a very positive thing
Yeah.
too. But of course, it is both.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you ask a celebrity, they're like, fame is painful
Yeah.
but wonderful, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like that of
Yeah.
like, everything is like, like the everything that's great about it that people want it to be so personal and like literally me, is also it has positive effects,
Mm.
but of course it's like sometimes painful
Mm.
because then you're like, but no, it's being played by Greta Lee, you know what I mean? Like that character's being played by Greta Lee, and it's a thing that like she and I worked on,
Yeah.
right?
Ask Greta Lee if it's her story too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Let's come back to Molly. Do people want to do like body shots off of you because of this film or something? Do they think, because you just said it was somewhat inspired by memories of what you used to do, but yeah, is that also a sort of burden that people are saying, oh, that must be Molly's story?
I think because there's so many characters that people get confused,
Yeah. Which one are
Going, which
you?
one are you? Yeah, and I'm like, all of them. No, I think they get confused because there's so many people, so they don't know where to look. But I don't know how you write anything without it being a part of you, because all I know is what I experience.
I wanted to talk to you, Molly, about that sort of notes thing because it is a film that's dealing with quite complex subjects of consent and abuse and partying and who's an ally and who's not. Um, was it tricky? Did people just believe in your voice and like, we're just going to trust Molly to take this, or was there a lot of sort of notes back of like, oh, be careful with how you shoot? this scene, and how do you either stand up to the note or take the note? How do you react to?
Definitely not in the shoot, but I mean, I think the interesting thing about this film is that it holds a mirror up to everyone that has something to say about it, and that's quite complex because instantly your sort of perception on the world is revealed. Um, should it be good or bad? And so that is quite a hard navigation because um, sometimes you get notes and you're like, really? But in general, the notes were like amazing. We had one Friday night where a set of notes came in, two sets of notes came in from opposing parties, and
Opposing notes.
and they were completely opposing, and but like step by step opposing, like all the way through, and the producer was like, "This is amazing. 'Cause you just don't have to do anything."
They cancel each other out.
Yeah, so it was,
Brilliant.
so we just like picked what we thought was sort of something
Yeah.
we.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question that I am going to 100% swear if it was a panel of men, I would also ask because I think, no, it's not that dangerous. But how is it, with especially it's your debut feature, some of you have been on film sets to various degrees or TV sets. What is it like walking in on like day one and you're the boss and everybody's looking to you for the vision and the answers, and do you automatically have that confidence to lead this whole team, or how did you think about that?
Yeah, day one was quite fun because we had nothing to do really, so we sort of just like played around in the sea, and then day two I was throwing up at lunch.
Okay.
Um, uh,
Are you a naturally confident person who wants to sort of share your vision and tell people what to do?
we had I think the best thing about filmmaking is collaboration, and so like my big aim of the experience was to like create a collaboration with everyone on the team. So we like played football every Sunday in prep, and all the way through the shoot, and we had like sing-alongs and barbecues and stuff, and so I felt really supported, which
If you have the right team around you, maybe that just it feels natural to be leading them.
yeah. And then basically day three, I like looked at myself in the mirror and was like, either you're going to be really ill by the end of this, or you should just try and enjoy the next 6 weeks. And then I just really enjoyed the next 6 weeks.
Okay, well done.
So, but yeah, there was a lot of Gaviscon before that.
Okay. The line producer, yeah, was buying industrial quantities. Let's go back to Celine. And same question, yeah, especially because you'd come from the theater world. You've probably not been on film sets are strange places and can be quite intimidating. So, how did you feel leading a film team?
Um, I think so. My first day was there was a we were supposed to go out on a boat to see the Statue of Liberty, shoot the Statue of Liberty on a boat, and we had like a historical storm the night before.
Welcome to filmmaking.
Like to filmmaking,
Yeah.
and then that morning, and this is day one, right? So I've never been on film set before. I've never worked on a film set before, and I show up on set, and it's literally like rain is here. Does that make sense? Like it's rain is like it's you cannot see this farther out, and we're supposed to be on a boat, and everybody's like, I think it will clear up, and you're like, will it clear up? Anyway, by the way, it did clear up. It was amazing.
Hey.
But I think it's like, so I feel like it was, um, I think the pressure is so immense because you do have like a hundred people at least, relying on you to know what you're doing, and you have to put on a very brave face of knowing what you're doing. And you have to really sell it, right? Because they're really smart. So you have to really sell it, and then you keep moving forward, like you really know what we're gonna do,
Yeah.
right? And I just think about that because I feel like there was a day where I really didn't know what I was gonna do. Because we had a really productive prep and we were feeling very prepared. So honestly, most days I did know what we were gonna do, and that was great. And then I think there was one time that because of a freaking flood, that we couldn't go into the building that we were supposed to shoot, and we had spent so much money on it, and we were going to go into this room and shoot it in there, and we could not step foot into it because of insurance. And I remember, and I happened to be approaching set, literally not knowing where we're gonna put the actors or the camera. And I remember walking through. It was a stroke of luck that I was walking straight past the trucks and like the over 100 people who were there trying to shoot this movie. And everybody's like, "Hey, Celine," and I was like, "Hi," but I had to act like, "Oh yeah, hi, hey, can't wait for us to shoot." And I remember there was a photo of me literally like on the ground, pointing to a random patch of grass, being like, maybe we can shoot there, or something like that. There was like literally a photo of me like on the ground
It sounds
because
biblical. All the
it kind of
storms
was.
and floods.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, it was in New York. It was hurricane season in New York,
hold up.
which we didn't realize was gonna be a thing.
Actually, a hurricane.
Yeah, actually a hurricane because yeah, it was all historical event.
Yeah.
You're laughing.
Wow.
But
Funny that why filmmakers end up making films about films because it's like so traumatic.
it is
Yeah.
so traumatic. It's
Yeah.
like the biggest thing. But I think part of it is that like, well, you just are responsible for all these people's time, and I mean, there was a moment where we had to shoot. Like our call time was like I think like 3 a.m. or something. And what that means is, of course, the trucks had to get there earlier than that. And I had to, and I felt so bad. So I like went to all the everybody, and I was just like, I promise you, this is gonna be so important in the movie. It's gonna be so good, and it's gonna really make the movie. I wouldn't ask you to wake up this early if it wasn't for how important this scene is. And then, of course, then everybody was like, cool, like like. And then, of course, it is really important shot in the film.
I thought you were going to say
Yeah.
you cut it. So good.
No, 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 no.
Yeah. Okay.
But of course, I feel like there's this moment where you just know you're gonna cut the scene, and in which case, I'm just like, let's not worry too much about the scene.
Okay.
You know.
Nice. Nida, I can somehow I picture like 18-year-old Nida in your bedroom, like directing an action choreography. Like it seems like you have this vision and you can just communicate it. Am I right? I mean, did you already just have this confidence to lead a team of a big film?
Lead a team. I so I come from television. Going to the film, it was pretty chill. Seems like cavalier, but I had worked with the same team on the TV show. A lot of the heads of department were the same. So that was wicked because I had trusted them. It felt like my people again. With maybe we have a bit more time and more toys, so it was cool in that sense. More prep. I think where I felt the kind of lead the team pressure was more post production, was in editing and doing test screening. So I had to test my film multiple times, get notes back from studios, and that process was new to me because with the TV show we were just like the edit was fast, we had to deliver it, it was done, it was out. You just had like we had a few note layers, but then it was done. Whereas here it was like audience testing and then getting data and responding to data. Yeah, people rate your characters. People say when they were what they liked best, what they hated, what scenes they rate your scenes, rate everything. And so that was where I felt as a director I kind of lost my footing because you have this idea of audiences watching your film, and then when you test, it's like a dry run audience, and then there's like a little group that meets after, and then they kind of live troll you. They don't know you're that filmmaker. They don't. You're at the back, and so it's like 2 rows, and then you're at the back, and you're listening to people like, "What the hell was that about?" Like that's really not. You're just like. So I had like an ego death. That's where I felt like that's not your question about leading the team. Because on set, cool, it was knackering every day. Woke up being like, I hate directing. Why am I directing? This is stupid. That happened.
Okay.
But
You get through.
I think that's part of it. We were talking about like, is it in here? Is it there? Does the industry need to change? Do we need to change our minds? I don't know. But like where it really challenged me was in post with the testing, audience testing.
Okay.
But ultimately, actually, to end on a positive, it was really worth it. You go through the thing and you're like, oh, but then actually, then you figure out what is cool because some people don't get you. That's chill, and then you realize the things where a lot of audiences because my film is tonally specific. It's like where can I make audiences come with me? Where am I losing people? So I had to figure out what notes were worth taking.
I notice this is a trap I fall into so much when I'm talking to filmmakers. I talk so much about the story, the story, the story, characters. Let's, you could have written a novel, but you made a film. Let's talk about the visual language of each of these films and just what you wanted to get across visually. I mean, Blood Study is so playful visually and almost cheerful, I think,
Thank you.
unless that's a bad word.
Yeah. No, no, no.
You're wearing bright yellow. I love
Oh,
it.
cheerful.
Yeah, how did you think about that visual language and that did that evolve as you got closer to making the film?
Yeah, it evolved constantly. I think I shortlisted the film before I'd even greenlit it, but I'd even greenlit, before it had been greenlit, because I was like desperate to have a sense of like control, and nothing feels more real when you shot. Then you're like, but then that evolves with every crew member that comes aboard, production designer, Simon Walker, just like I'd worked with a lot of the team before, and they knew, like with Lady Parts, I wanted it to be rich in color, and I wanted it to be vibrant, but not vibrant like icky vibrant. Somebody was a journalist who said, like, when you do like South Asian films, there's like exotic mango that you can end up with, which you don't want. You want like vibrancy, but not in like a kind of, not in like my jumpsuit right now, but so yeah, the team. It was all about the team, and my DP coming on board was huge. Like she comes from indie film, which was really exciting to me. Has a very
Ashley Connor.
Ashley Connor,
Yes.
brilliant, brilliant, brilliant filmmaker, and we spent so much time in prep being like, what are we? Who are we? Like sharing film references, watching movies. Like, are we this? Are we Brian De Palma? We're not Brian De Palma, no. And then being like, oh, we're like Scorsese when he was just, like had his like breakdown. That's who we are. But it was really fun, and I think ultimately visual language was playfulness, playful and anarchy. Like I wanted the film. Park Chan Wook was a kind of touchstone because he has a sort of it's stylized, but it's kind of fizzing. It's kind of like there's like it might just like burst and break, and because this film is sort of anarchic in tone and sort of upending a lot of stereotypes that like I just wanted it to feel like it was almost on the edge of just splitting apart. And so there was a kind of fizzing quality that we wanted, if that makes any sense. And color, vibrancy, and then what was it that Ashley said that I forgot? Yeah, it's about a teenage girl at the heart of it. So it's like a film. If a teenager made this film and she was really into films, so there was like a kind of a raw roughness to it. It wasn't stylized in a way like an Edgar Wright is stylized. Like it's like extremely controlled and like everything is immaculate. This was rough in a good way.
You did it. If you haven't seen this film, go watch it tonight. It's on
Streamable. You can watch it. Sorry, you do the.
No, but it's on DVD and Blu-ray very soon or now.
Is it now? DVD, Blu-ray, Amazon, couple quid. Where else?
Yeah, it's worth it.
YouTube, everywhere. Not yeah.
No. Celine, for you, obviously theater is a visual medium as well, but in such a different way. How did you start to think about filling a whole screen? And yeah, it's not the three-dimensional theater. Yeah, just really curious to hear how you thought about bringing this to life visually.
I think the main thing that my DP Shabir Kurtzner and I talked about is for it to feel like real life more than anything. And I didn't really weren't really talking about real life as a thing that to I didn't want we didn't want any audience member to really feel it as um trying to emulate something else except
Mm,
for the way it feels when you're looking at a person.
mm,
So I think it was very much about trying to capture what it feels like when, like, you and I are sitting here in this distance, and this is a kind of a natural distance between people, and like it really is like if I am the camera, and we're trying to find something where it the style of it, I didn't want it to be something that was too visible, because the part of the movie, the way it has to survive is immersion, right?
mm.
The audience has to feel like
We have
they're
to lose ourselves in this.
you have to lose yourself in their character, because it's like I don't that's really that's the story. It is about the kind of ordinary or the mundane people that are going through something extraordinary. So much of it had to be like that. So, like for example, we shot Statue of Liberty, but it was important for me to shoot the Statue of Liberty not on a drone or like, not in a way where it feels,
Glossy.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
something like, because of course Statue of Liberty is photographed a lot, but the way I wanted it is to be just from the boat, right? So it's kind of on the boat eye line where it does look like a person is just looking at
On a
the
normal tourist boat
on
that
a
a normal
Norris
person would
boat.
take. Yeah.
Exactly. And then of course the boat, because the boat, is like this. And I remember in post, my DP was like, do you want to, we need to equalize. And I was like, no, we think the Statue of Liberty should be like a little crooked like that. And so and I think because that's the point of view. So I think so much of it had to be an ordinary point of view more than anything. And I think that was the language that we were developing, and our goal was to be as rigorous with that project as possible.
It looks beautiful. Let's come to Molly. How did you want this holiday to look? And it looks different in different parts.
Yeah, we sort of designed it in two halves. The first half is like meant to be a bit of a Disneyland, and like a warm, like glowing.
Holiday fun.
Ooh, we're on holiday.
Yeah.
And then the second half is like you sort of see it crumble, and like the mess in the apartment like
Yeah.
overtakes.
It's like when you wake up with a hangover and the sun is right in your eyes, and you're like, ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
So everything from costume to production design and the camera was all about like being eye level and real as well.
You didn't shoot it yourself.
I didn't know.
Why? Too much work. I mean, not that
Six
you were.
main cast, 200 extras a day for the first 2 weeks.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I would.
But as a cinematographer, how did you choose your cinematographer?
Because we wanted it to be really real, we looked at documentary cinematographers and people that were really good at handheld, which I think is a bit of a dying art. There's not that many cinematographers that are really good at handheld, and actually also people who really liked the project. And do you know what? There wasn't that many. No, not many people wanted to shoot it. One.
Okay. But remind us the name. Sorry. Nicholas.
Nicholas, yeah.
Yeah. But he was the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the right one.
Because I feel like there's all these sort of lurid and club scenes kind of things in a nice way or in an impactful way. I didn't want to go to those clubs, but that's because I'm old.
Going back for my
Okay.
my birthday.
Okay. Good luck. But I remember I don't want to ruin it. There's a sort of walk of shame shot in the morning, and it looks like a Western. It looks so beautiful in this empty. Can you talk about that shot? I just have to know.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted it to have like for there to break reality at some point as well. That like the hangover to be like, basically we lose her. I mean, how much are we ruining it? We're ruining it. You lose her for a bit, and it feels weird to lose the main character and then stay in the perspective of the main character. So I wanted to make you feel like you've lost something or something radical has changed, or
And then she's coming back in.
and then she comes back in.
Deep, man.
So
It's even a
deep.
better shot than I thought. I'm going to soon open it up for some audience questions, but I want to ask each of you, so we call it Finding My Voice. And, in every film, there's compromises that have to be made. The filmmaking is thousands of decisions, maybe 1,000 in a day somehow. Can you think of one decision for you on this film that was really hard? A hard decision. No, you don't. A hard
Hard
choice.
Yeah.
A hard
in the edit.
compromise. Okay, in the edit.
Does that count?
Yes. Yeah. Filmmaking.
Yeah, the
It's in the edit.
We did these scenes, which were all inspired by music videos that or the music video days of stuff. So like we did in each club scene, there's like a music video style take on it. So like in one of the club scenes, they're all frozen and the camera moves through, and she's the only one dancing. Or like we emptied the entire club at 1 frame a second, and she's the only person that stays in the club. And yeah, none of them made the cut.
DVD extras. Two
Yeah,
words for you.
yeah, and it was
Please?
heartbreaking.
Oh. Celine, is there a decision you struggled with?
Every day. Every day there was a decision that you were like, oh no, is it gonna be okay? The I feel like it's true though. You know,
Yeah.
every day you're like, is this gonna destroy the movie? And then of course it's fine. But the well, I think the I think something that happens in post maybe is that like, but this wasn't, I don't know, because post is never that, ultimately post is not difficult, um because it is so much about like when you see it, like I've done the thing where it's like I had to cut something that on set I was like, we all like celebrated because you got, yeah, that's, I think that's what
Got
you were talking about,
it.
your thing. It's like
Yeah.
you're all like, it's so good, meh," and then everybody's like, it was a miracle, we got that light, and we're all just like celebrating, and like we have like soju because we're shooting in Korea, we're having soju, being, it's like, you guys are so awesome, like we had like such an amazing emotionally fulfilling day. And then I was in the edit and I was looking at it. Pam knows exactly what I'm talking about. Then I was just like, and then of course, like as I'm in the initial cut is of course like whatever, 2 hours and like 2 hours and 50 minutes or something like that. And and then of course there are things that I'm just like whoop whoop cutting so that the movie is, um better. But then and then it was amazing because I mean over time I think that it was clear to other people who are watching it with me. They're like, why doesn't Celine cut that? Like, why don't people who, especially the ones who weren't on site on that day, they were like, why don't they want to cut that? Why is it still in? And I think I had a real moment where I had to be like, well, I think it's because of the emotional connection I have to that moment where it really made me feel like a cool filmmaker, that I feel like I thought it should be in the movie. Right? Like that moment where it's just like, it's gonna make me look so cool because I'm gonna look like this filmmaker. And then you just think that that being in the movie is gonna make you seem really cool. And of course, that's connected to the feeling that you had when you got it. And then there was a moment where you're like, no, we just gotta cut it all. But I think, but I did have to cut it. And of course, my sweet DP who was on set and was celebrating with me, my DP, I remember after I showed him the movie, he was like, what happened to? And I'm like, you're the only one who is wondering what happened to that. Well, yeah,
The
I think that's
audience
hard.
wasn't missing it. They didn't know.
No, no, but it's like, but
It
it really is
hurts.
like, they say killing your darlings. I
Yeah.
think it's like it was that, and I think
Yeah.
that I was pretty good at killing my darlings until I came to that particular little sequence because it was just a beautiful shot of Korea, you guys. And I was like, we flew all the way over here. We're gonna see some beautiful Korea. Some of it is in the music video that I ended up cutting for the original song.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Saved it. Nita, what was a hard decision for you? Hey, music
Oh.
video?
It's a good tip. Good tip. Just keep all the stuff. Hard decision. Could it be a hard decision that like was? Yeah, I mean,
You can
these
be
are-
anything
it
you
could be
want.
anything.
There's no rules.
Uh, a lot. I mean, there's one casting the film was hard. Teenager has to do action, has to be funny, has to have heart, has to be South Asian and a teen, look young. All these things, and like, we kind of took a punt on somebody who was really great when she auditioned, but when like they don't have a lot of acting experience, and you're like, every decision you kind of big decision you make on for crew for cast is like gonna have an impact on whether your film is good. And this is like the lead actor, and she's in like almost every scene. So I was like, I, in auditions, I was like, okay, I still need to work with this act, but they show potential. And then I made a casting decision, and it was like massive, and we all felt good about it because um, she'd really done great in the audition, but it still wasn't like I can only ask an actor to like come in so many times and like do so many scenes, and so, but it was like the best decision I ever made in my life because she's amazing. See, uptick. See, took you on a journey, and she was great. She was amazing. She was
Happy
like,
ending.
happy ending. Like she was so good, and it made me really high of like because I'd lived with this character for like 11 years. Personal. It was personal. It was drawn from a lot from my own personal shit. So and I almost was like, I can't cast this because I'm gonna like kill whoever plays it. Because I'm like, no. But like I was thanking her every day on set, being like, "Thank you, you've taken a burden. Like trust, she works so hard, and someone who's talented and works hard and just like nailed it and makes your film more, just better in every sense." So it was like I don't know, it was cool, and it wasn't a decision that I made, like, as a director. You're like, I know it, my vision, true, but then it was definitely one that, like, I had to listen to people for, because it was quite close. When you write and you direct something, you're like this with your shit. So I think it's like so good to have people you trust who are like, but from this point of view, great. So that it was a decision that I came to, and like where I was like, oh yeah, directing is about knowing what you want, but also listening to the people you trust. I think, and like taking the time to like carefully make a decision for something that big. So that was the decision I made, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Best decision she ever made. I love it. Let's see if the audience has any questions for these amazing filmmakers. If you do, I've got 10,000 more if you don't, so don't worry. But does anybody want to raise a hand yet? Shy, shy. Yes. If you shout it, I'll repeat it into the microphone. Brilliant question. I'm going to repeat it just for the recording. So a writer is asking, yeah, how did you actually find your voice? Did you sort of discover your own voice as you have these journeys of writing these projects? How do you know it's your voice? How do you know it's the authentic voice in you? Nita, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think I sort and this is so a bit cringy, but I followed my joy, of like what was like getting me like really excited to write, and I also had the good fortune of like trying to write for stuff that wasn't my jam. Like I did trial episodes for EastEnders, and I was like, and you're like, and then I ended up writing it as a comedy, and they're like, this is great, but it's not EastEnders, and you're like, oh, okay, and like having opportunities where I was forced to.
I know. We need to make that
I thought
EastEnders
it was.
episode.
Honestly, it's cool. But yeah, I think following your joy has helped me, and just can we clock the hour? It's hard because a lot of like getting your first break is writing on other people's stuff, writing kids TV. But I realized EastEnders was like hell no, but then kids television, I was like, you get to play and like there's more kind of fun and creativity, and I was like, I don't know. It was just the industry was kind of funneling me into like closer to what I felt I could do well, and it's also like when I was being asked to be more serious, when I tried to be more serious, it like quite sucked. Um, so it's like also where I feel like I have specific like talent is where I feel like I was kind of finding and enjoying being.
Good point. Celine, can you talk about your voice?
I think because I was a writer first and I've done it for so long, I feel like I've done it since I was like 5. uh, so I feel like there was a moment where I feel like I knew that something was my voice, but I don't quite recall that moment because it was so long ago in a way. Like it feels like I was like 17 when I was like, this is me, this is the kind of work I do, right? And then of course, and I think that, but I think that like what you're saying of the finding your joy, it's really is something that's like, well, what makes you feel awesome? Like what makes you think is fucking cool? Like when you write something and you're like, that was good, like whatever that is. I think that if you chase that, and I think that ends up being your voice in a way, because I think that's really how I felt. Because of course, when you're like whatever 16 and you're writing something, you're just like, that's cool, that was really good. And then you pursue that, and then of course you get better from there, and then maybe that's your voice. Honestly, I feel like the thing that I learned when it comes to my voice was a visual voice for this part of my life as an artist, because yeah, it's the first time that I had such complete control and so much around the visual language of something that I was making, and just how much control and just how much everything. So I think that was very much a discovery. But again, it's the same thing. It's more like this feels right and it's awesome, and then you just I think that's the thing you chase. Yeah, it's joy. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I feel like the only reason why I wouldn't use the word joy and I would call it as like it's awesome is because it doesn't always bring you joy to write for me. It's sometimes pain. But,
Hmm.
you know, but pain where you're just like
Pain that's worth it.
that was painful, but it was awesome,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think there was a point where I was really trying to write this thing before the wedding, as in before I realized what I should be writing, And I was like, yeah. Every film four kept just being like, yeah. So when are you gonna write that thing? And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I realized that when I write something that I know, it happens quickly, and when I try and
When you try to force it or pull
force
it out,
something, it
it's
just doesn't happen at all. So, um, yeah, that's not really answering the question, is it?
no,
But
I think it is. But it's also just sort of when you can write authentically, I think. 'Cause
yeah, and
you
then
can
I'm like
try to
excited
sit
to go
down.
home and write
Yeah.
rather than like being like, ah, yeah, this is gonna happen on Tuesday.
Yeah. That's a very honest answer. I like it. Is there one? Yes, we have one more question. You want to shout? Great question. I'm going to repeat it for the recording. Uh, when you came out of NFTS with the as a cinematographer, did you immediately get the sort of cool jobs you wanted, or the jobs that spoke to you, or were you taking some to pay the rent and then started finding the right fit?
Yeah, I basically no is the answer that the jobs didn't come, but I set myself a task of like trying to shoot something every day, which is mad, but like going out and taking photographs or like forcing activity basically, and then I ended up at this film school with run at film school at a cooking school. Making a film about a rapper who had yet to release an album, teaching kids how to cook, and so I was shooting that because I was just shooting everything that I could like that everyone said you should shoot, and turns out it was Loyal Kana, and and
Wow.
we sort of like
Was this
became.
at Ottolenghi?
It was at Ottolenghi, yeah. And he hadn't released an album yet, and he was like, "My name's Ben," and I was like, "My name's Molly," and then we just like shot this thing, and with these amazing ADHD kids, and yeah, and it sort of took off at that point where then Ben released the album, and then I got more work.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Can you
and
bring Lil Connor to like hang out at Sundance
yeah, he's
London?
actually a big film nerd, and he texts me every time something happens with the film, like,
Yeah.
"Yo."
Yeah. I have a question for you as a cinematographer working really well with Charlie Regan on Scrapper. And that was maybe about the same time you're getting ready to make your feature. I mean, do you ever find that you're sort of juggling the roles of like, oh, I should tell her to do
No, no, not
this?
at all.
No.
No, not at all. And
Okay.
I mean, what's great about Charlie, I think she's an amazing director,
Mm,
firstly. And I learned everything that I know on that set, to
mm.
be honest. But she is full of creativity, and she does that thing where she inspires a crew to collaborate.
Okay.
So, you know, if I did,
If you had an idea, you
if
could
I had an
say.
idea, I would for sure feel like I could throw it in. But she's 10 step ahead. She's way ahead of me.
Well,
She's like,
not a competition.
no, no, I mean just
Two
like on
brilliant
set,
films. Yeah.
she's an amazing
Yeah.
person.
Great. Part of the reason we knew our friends at Audible would be into this panel is we wanted to ask about, does anybody, just other forms of storytelling you might be interested in? Do you think you're only going to, like, Celine, are you writing theater? Are you going back to films? Are you going to go back and forth? Are you going to write a novel? You going to do a podcast? How do you see your storytelling voice? Where's it going to go?
I'm just gonna keep making movies.
Okay, that's it. No more theater.
No more theater.
Wow. Okay.
Well, only because I think I was like, talking to Pam about this earlier, but it's not because I don't like theater. It's because I loved it too hard for a long time. So sometimes you just have like it's not like a kind of thing where I'm like I kind of flirted with theater and now I'm like maybe theater maybe not. It's really like no I was married to it and it's a long breaking down of that particular marriage with me personally. It's nothing that and then now I have this new lover filmmaking and it's amazing. I'm so in love. It's
Okay.
honeymoon phase.
Okay.
I'm losing it. I just want to make a movie every hour. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Nita, you are writing We Are Lady Parts 2, season 2, and I'm so excited as a fan.
Thank
But do you think you're still working in episodic going forward? A bit of both?
Yeah.
Do you want to write a novel? Do you want to write a radio play? Any
Not
ideas?
pressing.
Okay.
Not a novel. I really like, I mean, you directing I find directing like harder, um, and writing more natural, I think. And so I really love writing. And I love writing film and television. And I find TV somehow also trickier. Like, I want to go back to film. And I like to keep writing and directing. You know, podcasts are cool. Like, I'm open, you know? Audible.
Hey, Audible's here.
I'll write a book. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
film and TV is where I'm at right
Okay. Right now. Let's come back to Molly. And Molly, do you think you're only going to direct? Are you going to direct and shoot? And how are you going to balance all that?
I'm shooting next week.
What are you
So
shooting?
I'm
Can you
back
tell
on
us?
an advert. Fun
Advert.
times.
Okay. But hey, that's paying more than $500 for
No,
a
yeah,
whole
it's great. I
play.
no, I'm serious. Fun
Yeah.
times. It's good,
Yeah,
good fun
yeah.
times.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and shoot and direct if
Okay.
that's possible. Let's see how it holds up.
Okay.
I'd also really like to be a radio presenter.
Would you?
Yeah, I would really like to do that, and then I could just,
Loyal Coroner can get you on Radio 1
do you
tomorrow,
think?
can't he?
I don't know, Ben, if you're listening.
Okay. And yeah, can we just hear, you mentioned you're shooting something, but yeah, you're writing something new to direct, or is that
Yeah.
not yet?
Yeah, there's some writing happening.
Okay. And when can the world see How to Have Sex? It's our friends at Mubi, right?
No,
Are they there?
mid-November, we think. We hope.
TBC. um, yes. Okay. Yeah. And Celine, yeah, are you working on new scripts, new ideas? What's coming up for you?
I finished my movie. I finished Past Lives last year in June, and then the world premiere was gonna be at Sundance, so there was a 6 month gap, which made me want to die. It was a long time to wait. Pam knows I was tortured to wait for the Sundance premiere. And then I think in that time, one of the things that staved off the torture was writing something. So I have something that I wrote.
When are you gonna make it?
When I can.
Okay. I can't wait to see it. And Nida, you're writing
Right.
Lady Parts 2.
Mhm.
Have you even been able to think about what the next film might be?
Yeah, I have.
You have ideas.
I have ideas. I have big ideas. And then you're like, oh, is that going to get me in director jail? You know, like, how big should you go? These are the challenges.
Go big.
I don't know, man. Like, you want to go big, but then you, like, what is cinema these days? Okay, that's a whole other
Oh,
panel.
wow. I'm not doing that panel now. I do not have the brain power.
I have
What
a
is
TED
cinema?
talk. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted, yeah, I love genre. I want to make more action. I want to make more comedy, sci-fi, you know, just fun, cool stuff.
Okay. This has been, to use your words, awesome and amazing and badass. And I want to thank you so much for, first of all, just for being creative people who've put some brilliant work into the world. And some of you haven't seen all the films yet, but just phenomenal work. Thank you for your work. Thank you for coming here and telling us a little bit about your process and your voice. We did it in such a way that wasn't terribly cheesy, I hope. You found your voice. We found our voice together. That was the cheesy bit. And no, seriously, thank you for being here at Sundance London and for making amazing work and talking about it. And thank you for being a great audience. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.